Welcome to this special edition of Women's World. Tonight we feature women as champions of change, or rather empowered women, empowering women. You may ask why? Because empowering women to participate fully in economic life across all sectors is essential to building stronger economies, achieve internationally agreed goals for development and sustainability, improve the quality of life for women, men, families and communities. Women empowerment is also a response and prevention to gender-based violence. For now, let's explore women empowerment and what that means for PNG. What is the national strategy and how are we addressing sustainable development goals? Over the last decade, gender equality has become more prominent in the PNG development landscape. The Office for the Development of Women was established in 2006 as the emphasis on women's empowerment was formally recognized as a development issue. PNG's Medium-Term Development Plan 2011 to 2015 and 2016 to 2017 recognizes the importance of addressing gender equality issues in national development. This policy also sets a target of achieving by 2030 zero tolerance against gender-based violence. A national policy on women and gender equality 2011 to 2015 also gives attention to the need for women's empowerment. This policy strategizes to increasing advocacy against violence against women and girls, service provision to affected victims, capacity building including research and legislation development to better address gender-based violence issues. PNG's Gender Equity and Social Inclusion (GESI) policy was also launched in 2013. This policy's key focus implementation areas urge government employees' action towards the women's equality and access to resources and opportunity, progression to leadership and decision-making roles, and prevention and response to workplace sexual harassment and domestic violence. There are, of course, other important documents which also include the National Health Strategy 2011 to 2020 and HIV/AIDS Strategy, which addresses gender-based violence and to reduce the impact of HIV/AIDS on women and girl victims of sexual violence. The judicial system is also working to make its services more accessible to victims of domestic violence by providing training and advocacy programs as well as legal services support. Family and sexual violence units have been set up around the country within the police force, and a family and sexual offences unit established in the Public Prosecutor's Office in the nation's capital, as a pilot program which will gradually be rolled out to other centres countrywide, aimed at adequately prosecuting and lawfully punishing perpetrators of violence against women and girls. These national policies and goals align with that of wider global treaties like the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, Convention on the Rights of a Child, and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which all work on gender equality and in strengthening the institutional and operational frameworks of governments like PNG and civil societies to promote women empowerment. Don't go away. When we return, we show you the different stakeholders in PNG supporting the advancement of women and girls, their families and communities. Gender-based violence affects nearly 2/3 of all women across the country. Tonight, we share the types of organizations that make their core function to empower women and girls, ultimately strengthening their needs to address GBV. These are women as champions of change. Meet Winnie William. She manages almost 20 health clinics, aid posts and voluntary care counselling centres, which provide primary health care and HIV/AIDS services in the remote areas of Southern Highlands in Hela Province. Last year, Winnie received the U.S. Secretary of State's International Women of Courage Award. She received the award for placing her own life in danger to save other women from horrific sorcery-related violence.
What really motivated me into this was The way I saw the torture of those women who were seeking refuge in our clinics was that somebody had to stand up for them and to really intervene to help them, because they were the ones who their voices cannot be heard. And for me, this award is really a surprise for me because, like I said, I never expected that. It was from my heart that I really wanted to serve. We have policies and acts in place to talk about violence against women, but they're the very women that they cannot have access to that. They're the ones who are really facing violence on the community level, that someone has to speak up. For me, I would say it is a really cultural impact that I have that has motivated me to get such an award, because coming from a culture where women is dominated in any decision making, I broke through. And it is from the help of courageous religious priests and nuns that I have been working with, my colleagues, the nurses, the other health workers, that had made me strong to go forward and say, look, it's about time we need to change. For every nurse in the country, every health worker, it has been a pledge that we want to serve. If it is the service that you would provide and that you feel that it is a desire really in you, I don't think there will be a barrier in you to whom to serve. For me, I had no barrier in anybody. Going back into my experience in living and working with, attending to those people, especially the females who were tortured, physical and even mental disturbance that we had to go through, it was like nothing, because I knew that it was that person I wanted to serve. So to tell the perpetrators that there is no limitation in the care we provide, I think that is what we should be saying. Because if you just back off when they come and challenge you, saying that take this person away from the clinic, you're not allowed to see this guy, it is like, where did you put the promise that you wanted to serve? So for me, those are things that made me strong and said, if I wanted to serve, even if it is a woman who's accused of being a sorcerer, is the one who still needs the care that I have to serve. So those were some of the things that made me strong. And then I would encourage other young nurses, and those who are really courageous too, that don't be scared to serve.
Nancy Pella recently took on the role of President of the Women in Maritime Association. The National Constitution of Papua New Guinea, under the fourth goal and directive principles, states Papua New Guinea's natural resources and environments to be conserved and used for the collective benefit for us all, and to be replenished for the future generations. Therefore, women in any maritime roles perform significant duties for their country.
The objective of the PNG WIMA was to create awareness among women, children, and the public on sea safety, marine environment protection, HIV and AIDS, and gender issues that are affecting our women in the communities. It was also created to promote education, training, and career opportunities in the maritime sector for women, and to promote the awareness and the role of women within the sector, and supporting women who are already working in the sector, and promoting safe work practices within the maritime sector as well. Shipping is male-dominated industry, and that tradition has run long and deep. Through a global program by the International Maritime Organization on the integration of women in maritime sector, it has tried to help the industry to sort of move on from that tradition, to help women achieve representation within it. That is in keeping with the 21st century expectations. And I see this exciting things in the maritime sector. My encouragement would be, to try something new, to face the challenges, and to stand up for something that you've never tried before, and to make a difference.
Lesieli Taviri is more than a CEO at Origin Energy. She's also chairperson of Business Coalition for Women. The coalition works with businesses to support and influence the culture, practices and policies within companies to create great opportunities for equality and to create opportunities for businesses to exchange best practices that are already underway in PNG. Here's an example of the efforts of the coalition is doing in the resource sector.
I mean, whilst we work with the business or private sector quite broadly, is the focus on the actual industry is actually quite great, and we've got an increasing interest in it because of the fact that it's a big part of the economy, but also is there more and more women who are interestingly wanting to pursue careers in actual mining or wanting to participate somehow in the resource sector. And so we've actually done some really great work with organisations such as, or companies in the sector such as Oil Search, the Oil Search Foundation, as well as Simberi or St. Barbara, where we've actually looked at helping them actually develop a conducive working environment for their employees, female employees, by ensuring that there are actually gender-smart safety policies within the organisations.
In 2007, Jennifer Baingwaiko and her husband Bao Waiko co-founded an organisation called Save PNG, which inspires locals to embrace their cultural identity and protect their traditional foodways. Together, the couple have also produced a 5-part educational television series called Papua New Guinea, aimed at encouraging healthy eating habits. Jennifer also ran for the first time in the 2012 elections in the Markham electorate and came 5th.
I run an organisation with my husband, Bao Waiko, called Save PNG or Save PNG. And basically it's a media education organisation where we've been working to use media to help educate people. Because in Papua New Guinea, seeing is believing quite often. Papua New Guineans are very practical people, and when they can see something with their own eyes, they tend to believe it more. So we like to use media as, and film especially, as a medium to reach out to the grassroots of Papua New Guinea. Food and agriculture is it's absolutely vital, and we really need to place more emphasis on that. 80% of our population is dependent upon the land, and having access to that and being able to farm that and being able to make a living from that is really, really important. And I think quite often when we get caught up in this whole development issue, we forget that there's a skill that Papua New Guineans still have, and that's agriculture. And instead of reinventing the wheel and looking for some other ways and means for our people to earn an income, we need to really focus on agriculture and how we can use the foods that people are already planting and already eating and promote that. I think I just really wanted to encourage Papua New Guineans that, whatever little achievements you're doing in your own area, just keep on going, keep on pushing, trying your best, because, it's the small things that, build up to the bigger things, to the larger achievements. And if we can all, as Papua New Guineans, strive and try our very best to do those small things wherever we are, in whatever sphere of influence that we have, then, you're doing something to help. You might have a grade 10 education, but, you can read, you can still help somebody else to learn how to read. A lot of women in the rural areas, they find it really difficult to approach, the politicians, the male politicians, and quite a lot of the time they're the ones that are out in the gardens really doing backbreaking work, and they need to be able to have access to somebody who they can voice their concerns to and feel comfortable doing that. And I think if we have more females in government, it gives more of a representation to the other half of the population. I think that women need to be considered more within that planning space, and they need to be given the opportunity to be there so that they can help the people as well and also participate in the development of the country at that level.
Australia's new ambassador to women and girls, Dr. Sharman Stone, attended PNG's Women's Forum recently, sharing her story of 20 years of experience in the Australian Parliament. She is advocating for women and girls' equal participation in political, economic and social affairs.
If we don't have more women in parliaments, whatever country, then we're not going to have the best parliaments, because women bring that knowledge about family, about the resources needed to keep families, the economy. Women are dedicated to peace and security, to law and order, as are men. But because women are the ones who bring the children into the world, raise those children up, they want to make sure their children have the best chances in life, perhaps opportunities they never had. Women need to be at the table making policy, changing legislation where it doesn't work, introducing new legislation. So women have got to be in Parliament. They've got to be holding hands with men as equal partners, running countries. Papua New Guinea, no exception.
Nations develop faster and they have healthier democracies when they include more women, when women are involved. If you look at the Economist report on the healthiest economies and the healthiest democracies in the world, these are mostly nations that have given tremendous opportunities to women. It's countries like New Zealand, Norway, Sweden, United States, even some in Africa like Rwanda. So adding women to governance and to business and to society in general creates a healthier society and democracy. So our goal in sponsoring the Women's Forum each year is to support PNG Vision 2050 and the United Nations Development Goals by increasing opportunities for women and make sure that they're aware what the potential is. So we're delighted that PNG's got a national policy for women and gender equality, but unfortunately there are areas where women are still lagging behind. And those are areas that we're particularly focused. For example, in healthcare. There have been improvements in healthcare, but there's still a shortage of doctors. And particularly in rural areas, only 49% of the women have access to a medical service provider when they give birth. While there's been real progress in education, and I commend PNG for that, still only 39% of university students are women, and there's room for growth there. We're also seeing that girls tend to drop out of high school at a little bit higher rate than boys. There's also issues with legal status in PNG. Not all women have the same opportunity for land ownership. They have issues with polygamy, with inheritance, marriage laws. Some of that is still lagging behind. Women are also more inclined to be victims of violence in the country, which is of particular concern. And while we're seeing more and more women involved in the economy, there still is a gap in income and a gap in opportunity in economic development here in the country. So if we can close that gap, working with all these partners in the country, you're going to see a healthier democracy and happier population in general.
I'm Teresa Jentong, President of National Council of Women. It is a big body, the voice of the women of Papua New Guinea, and it's as old as the country itself, and also is enacted under the Act of Parliament. When the changes took place with the laws, and then the council was not, didn't go through many changes. But right now, we made sure that the women are also in the ward level, by law, the organic law also stipulates that how many women should be, and they're contesting now in the provincial presidential seats in the local level government and also in the ward level. And also when it comes to DSIP and all that, they are also members of the budget planning and priority committee. Women in leadership, it's about women leading through a purpose and direction, and also what you want to drive the women for the change. And also when I was talking about the organic law, I should mention about the organic law also stipulates that the president of the national provincial councils of women are automatically the members of the provincial governments. Well, we're talking about the social structure and the family unit in the matrilineal society, and that's where the very important
the role that women played, because at the end of the day, it's the family unit, and as traditional leaders like chiefs, then we are in control, even though it's not surfacing, but it's there. The power is there. The chiefs have given us. We are all chiefs, men and women, but there's a space for everyone, and this is waiting for us women to take our place, and like women must be very articulate, and we must all work together with the leadership at that level, because by nature everybody is different, and everybody will speak not the same, even though it can come from one organization, but we will have different views, different opinions. It's just the way the leaders accept. Like for me as the president, I have a lot of challenges, but I accept as a leader. I don't fight with them. I mobilize them and come together. With my leadership, when they challenge me, I call them and we sit down and talk. If I'm not doing the right thing, I need you, and you also need me.
The National Council of Women has really impressive leadership, but they aren't necessarily moving into the ranks of high position in business or positions of influence in government. We're also seeing that some of the more young women are not getting as involved in the National Council of Women, and I think following Governor Sosa's example, we should put more effort behind helping them become more active members of civil society and using the expertise and the knowledge that they have to grow women's opportunities in the country. So I'm certainly behind that. When I get out and I visit other provinces, I certainly like to meet with those women, and I find that they're actually very inspiring. They're actually doing the work of messaging their communities and representing women's interests in their community, and I take my hat off to them.
For me, economic empowerment is the ability of women to build their capacity to be able to supply for themselves, like especially for their livelihoods, looking after themselves and their families. Not only that, but in terms of economic activity, there's sort of two tiers. So economic activity, as in businesses. So a lot of our women talk from my experience that a lot of our women are engaged in informal sector business. And so it's also about them providing for their families, for their education, for their health, etc. And the other tier is looking at education to economically empower our women, because a lot of these things you can't do one without the other. So it's really important that at the basic level we're also educating our young women and girls, and also being able to provide opportunities for them. So even if they haven't been able to, find employment or start a business because they haven't been educated, there are other means and ways of providing that skills upgrade or training for them.
I think what we've got to acknowledge is that women were leaders traditionally. Whether they were even in a patrilineal society, they were still leaders, but their leadership was more invisible. And it's a matter of making that visibility come out and getting the minds of people to accept that leadership from women can be visible and public. I would say theirs was a private leadership. I know that in the Vahoi household, in the Kidu family home, I know that the most powerful, I believe anyway, that the most powerful person was my mother-in-law, my late mother-in-law. Even though her son became Chief Justice and she had 6 tertiary educated sons, which was incredible as a widow. She had 6 sons who got tertiary degrees. She was the most powerful one there. But her power and influence was in the private sphere. In the public sphere, one of the males would speak, one of the male elders of the family. And this is what we've got to allow, that the private sphere must be allowed now to become public. And I think we're not recognising enough the power women had in the private sphere traditionally as well. And let people analyse this more, because sometimes I find there's this negative thing that people are thinking that traditionally Papua New Guinea was a very negative society. I don't believe so. I married into a very proud, dignified culture, and it's facing enormous change at present. But I didn't see any violence against women ever in those early years in the 1960s and 70s. Social dynamics were managed by customary ways, and they worked well. So let's not say it was wrong. It's just now it has to change because circumstances have changed. Yeah.
That brings us to the end of this edition. Join us next time as we feature economic empowerment, sexual and reproductive health, and empowering youth and adolescents. If you have a story to contribute, feel free to get in contact with us at womensworld@mtv.com.pg. You can also watch other editions in this season on MTV Online. Go to www.mtv.com.pg or visit us on our Facebook page. It is also available for your listening on FM 100. Until next time, take care.